Hi guys, welcome back to the second part of your workshop on handling categorical data in Excel. So for this tutorial, you need to be in the second tab, Categories 2, of your chocolate data Excel dataset. And what we're going to do in this one is just a few more examples of sorting. We're going to look at deleting data, and we're also going to be doing a few simple functions as well. So what I'd like you to do first is, again, to have a look at this data set, and then we're going to sort and organize the data set first. So in this hypothetical data set, we've asked several people, staff and students, which one their favorite chocolate bar is out of a box of celebrations. And these are their answers. So just to reiterate how we use Excel and how we organize data in Excel, as I said before, we have in columns, which are these ones, the variables. So we have the respondent and whether they were staff or students, and their favorite chocolate bar, which is one of the different ones you find in a box of celebrations. So variables in the columns. The rows represent individual data points. So this person here, the first person we asked, was a staff member, and their favorite chocolate is Bounty. Down here we have a student, and their favorite chocolate is Galaxy. So all the information about this person is in a row, and the different bits of information, the variables we collected about them, are in the columns. And that's how we organize data in Excel. What I've created here is just a frequency table ready for us to insert some data so we can see how many staff and students chose the different types of chocolates as their favorite chocolate bar. So just to start with, I'd like to ask you again the question of what kind of data do we have here? So we have the respondent, which is either staff or student, and we have the favorite chocolate bar, which is Bounty, Snickers, Galaxy, and so on. So I'll pause the video, get you to answer that question, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so hopefully you have correctly identified both of those variables as nominal, just as before. Okay, just because this time we asked what the favorite chocolate bar is, rather than just what chocolate bars we find, that is still the same type of data. Bounty, Snickers, Galaxy, Caramel, Malteser, they are still just types of chocolate. And there is no natural hierarchy to them, and you have respondent, which is also nominal, staff and student, because there is no natural hierarchy amongst them in this case. Now, the next thing I want to point out to you is that whenever you're doing questionnaires such as this one, sometimes people don't answer them correctly. So this person here, for example, has answered their favorite chocolate bar, but they haven't given us an answer to whether they are staff or student. We can't use that data, and that's happened a few times throughout. Now, what we need to do in order to tidy up our data set, and it's important that before we do anything with the data, we tidy it up, we need to get rid of these empty rows of data, because we don't have both bits of information that we need, so they are useless to us. And that can happen. Sometimes data is affected by something, like in this case, the wrong answering by the people that we asked, and we just need to delete those data. Now, in order to get them to delete them, we could do that separately, just delete these rows, but it would potentially mean that we overlook one. And so the better way to do that is to organize the data first, sort it so they're all in one place, and then delete them in bulk. And the way to do that is, like we did last time, to sort the data. In this case, we have two columns. So we want to highlight both of the columns, and we'll do that the way I showed you before, by highlighting the whole column using these identifiers at the top here. So I'll wait till hover over the A for column A, I'll wait till that little arrow appears, and then I press the cursor down, I keep it down, and I drag across to B. And now I've highlighted both of these columns all the way to the bottom, including empty cells. And now I need to go back to where we were before. We're in the Home tab up here, and we go to Sort and Filter, Custom Sort. Now, Excel knows, just like before, that the data has headers, okay? So that these two cells in row 1, are just the names for the variables. They're not part of the data. And what we want to do is we want to sort the data by respondent, because we've seen that there are gaps in that, okay? But what we can then also do, just so we also have the chocolate bars in order, is we can sort the data by another level. We can add the level here and sort the data first by respondent alphabetically and then by favorite chocolate. And what that's going to do is we're going to be able to see the different respondents and then have in blocks the different types of chocolate bar, which is what we also need in order to fill this out. So I'll show you what that looks like. Press OK. And what we have now is all of the staff members here, and then all of the students down here, and for each of those, the different types of chocolate bar, starting with Bounty, then Galaxy, and so on. And right at the bottom here, we have the cells that were left empty. So right down here we have those people that didn't respond to the questionnaire properly, and we can delete those. Okay, the best way to delete things in Excel, remember there are two things about these cells. There's the cell itself, which is A168 and B168, and there's the content of the cell. We can delete just the content, or we can delete the whole cell, in which case anything that's below will get shifted up. I'll show you what the difference is. I can go here and I can just press delete on my keyboard, and all that happens is the contents of the cells get deleted, but the cells themselves remain where they are. If instead of doing that, I right click onto these cells that I've highlighted and I press delete, what it wants to do is delete the actual cells, and it's asking me what to do with the cells that come underneath. In this case, if I shift them up, these two cells have been deleted, and so now the cells Malteser and Milky Way have become 168 and 169. That's an important difference, and what's most important is that we never disconnect these two bits of data. Okay, so this student here has chosen Twix, and we can't disconnect those two. So for example, if I deleted stuff in here and I just deleted this cell, or this one, and I shifted the rest of the cells up, it would look as though that student instead now has selected Twix and not Snickers. Okay, if I go back, that student actually selected Snickers, but if I delete that cell, it looks as though they've selected Twix instead. Okay, so that's one thing we don't want to do. We always want to make sure that these bits of information stay together. Okay, so in this case, we can just delete the contents because this is at the bottom here and it won't affect our data in any way. So now the next thing we want to do is complete this table, and I'd like you to do that just the same way that we did before. I'm going to pause the video here and I'm going to ask you a few questions about how many of the different types of chocolate bars are in each of the cells. So complete the table and then answer the questions, and then we'll go from there. Okay, well done guys. Hopefully your table looks like mine here. So this gives you the different types of chocolate bars which were named as the favorite by the staff and the students. And it looks as though a lot of staff members like Maltesers the most, whereas amongst the students it's Bounty and Maltesers and sort of Milky Ways, a bit more of an even spread, okay? But the mode in this case is Milky Way for the students and Malteser for the staff members. Now, one other thing I wanted to show you, and I mentioned this in the lecture, is how to do very simple calculations using Excel. Now, while the mode is the only summary that we can produce out of categorical data, or we can create generally a frequency table such as this, okay? This tells us a summary of what we have in raw data here. These two columns are our raw data, and we have summarized them here by giving a frequency for each of the outcomes, each of the different chocolate bars. Another thing we want to find out is, okay, well, how many staff and students did we actually ask? And we can do that by very simply adding up these frequencies, because all of these numbers represent one staff member and all of these represent one student. we can just sum them up in a very simple function. Now, as I mentioned in Excel, if you want to input a function, you use the equals sign. Okay, so I'm pressing that on my keyboard, equals, and then you use the function that you want to do. There are loads of different ones, and actually if you look into when you're in the Home tab and you look at up here, this is the Functions tab, okay, and you can actually open that up. And if you go to more functions, you can see all the different things that Excel can do. Right now, we're interested in a very simple sum function. Okay, you can do two things. You can either type this, and then it will come up in a list down here. You can double click on that, and it will open up a bracket here. Or you can also type it manually. Okay, so you can just go sum, open bracket. And the open bracket is basically where you now tell Excel what do you want to sum up. So it's asking you, and it gives you prompts as to what you need to input here. What's the first number? What's the second number? What do you want me to sum up? And you can either select those manually. Okay, you could do this, comma, this, comma. And you can see that it prompts you, okay, now I want number 3. Number 3 is this, okay? Or you can get rid of all that and you can just highlight them all in one foul sweep. Then you need to close the bracket, and then you need to press enter to reveal the total number of staff members that have answered the questionnaire. And then you can do the same for students. We'll do a quick question on this. I want to know what your result is, and hopefully you get the correct one. And if you insert that, we'll go on with the video from there. Okay, so hopefully you have also found that there are a total of 83 staff members and 83 students who have answered the questionnaire. Okay, and the last thing I just want to show you quickly is that other type of graph that I showed you in the lecture. Remember when we did the simple categories where we just had the type of chocolate, we created a very simple pie chart out of this one data set. Now remember that a pie chart can only ever show you one variable. What we have in this data set is two variables, okay? We have the type of chocolate, the favorite chocolate bar, and we have the type of respondent, which is staff and student. So two different variables, and that requires either two separate pie charts, or if we want to be able to directly compare the different selections by the two groups of people, then we would create a clustered bar chart. And as we did before in Excel, the simplest way of creating a chart is to highlight what you want in the charts. We're going to exclude the total here because we're not interested in displaying that graphically. And then we go to Insert, and we select a very simple bar chart. Okay, we go into bar charts, and then we want to use this one here, which is the clustered column or clustered bar chart. And we select that, and Excel will create that for us automatically. Okay, so out of 83 staff and students, we can see which chocolate bar was their favorite automatically. And as I said, as we sort of go on in the module, you'll also learn how you can manipulate these charts. But ultimately, the easiest way usually is to organize your data in a logical way and then just highlight what you want to put in the graph and select the graph, and usually it throws out the correct chart. That's not always the case, and that means sometimes you need to change what Excel has done if it doesn't show the correct thing. So you always need to check what it does and whether what it actually shows is correct. In this case, we have the numbers here, and the numbers seem to be correct. So we've got 10 bounties here for staff members, which are in blue, and that looks correct. So always double check that Excel has done the right thing here. Okay, so this is the graph, and this is all I wanted to show everyone today. But if you still have time after doing these tasks, please go on to do the extra task where I'm going to show you a way of creating a frequency table like this without having to sort through data first. So a shortcut using a function in Excel.